It's 3 in the morning, and the weather is excruciatingly cold out there. The wind is howling as it continuously shakes the windows of young Kafka's room. He wakes up and feels parched. Kafka looks outside his window and a sudden terror overpowers his thoughts. The absolute darkness in his room and the faint moonlight falling on the floor makes him anxious. Kafka begins to cry. The darkness in the room seems to cage Kafka, and his muffled cries become louder and louder. He is asking for water. A loud thud, and his door bangs against the wall. A huge man comes in and drags Kafka out of his bed. Kafka is half awake and tears are rolling down his eyes as he is being dragged on the cold floor. His knees are bruised and his frail hands are struggling to keep up with the man as he tries to stand up. Kafka starts to shiver as he finds himself being thrown on the balcony, barefoot and in the sheer layer of his nightshirt. Kafka struggles to stand up as his father locks him outside. He stands there the whole night, like an animal waiting for freedom, but will only leave the cage on his master's order. When you lead such a life where you never feel loved, you lose your sense of identity and thus you fail to find your purpose in life. Everything seems doomed. The world, humanity, society. Kafka failed to find any hope in this cruel world which has given him nothing but pain and misery as he lies on his bed, alone, waiting for his inevitable demise. No doubt Kafka had a difficult life. He had no control over his condition at such a young age, but once you grow up, it's important to develop your own worldview. It's never easy to loosen the baggage of your past. We humans tend to hold on to our past way too strongly, not because we want to, but because we hold ourselves accountable for letting others harm us. We need to learn to forget and forgive our own mistakes because only then will we be able to look for hope while living on this dying piece of rock called Earth. In the early 2010s, a similar pessimistic worldview like Kafka's came into existence. Online communities became breeding grounds for a sense of disillusionment and despair. Economic uncertainties, societal shifts, and the ever-accelerating pace of technological change contributed to the rise of a subculture that questioned the traditional narratives of success and happiness. A doomer is characterized as a person in his 20s stricken with hopelessness and utter despair for life. This person believes that humanity is doomed and thus they refuse to find purpose or to engage with anyone or anything. Doomer has multiple counter-characters such as Boomer, Bloomer, and Zoomer. But Doomer can be explained as the amalgamation of all the worst parts of existentialism, nihilism, absurdism, and all the other isms explained by philosophers. Having such an attitude towards life will never allow any human being to live. There is always something that does not go according to your plan. Life will never be just about happiness. You'll be delusional if you think that life's end purpose is to achieve ultimate happiness. Life is lived through a series of goals, and the fulfillment of those goals bring with itself little beautiful chunks of joy. It's like you hike to the top of the mountain. Your heartbeat is fast and you are struggling to catch your breath, and you have the worst pain in your feet and your hands are numb. But the moment you see the view from up there, your whole body fills with a sudden joy, and that joy brings you relief. You spend hardly 5 minutes on the top and then you start to descend. That's life. You climb, you feel happiness for a short period of time, and then on your way back to another ascend. Very Sisyphus of us, right? Now, let's make this clear. I might at times tell you to just breathe, relax, or own your shit and deal with it. So this video falls somewhere in between those relaxing, meditative painting videos or Gordon Ramsay yelling at chefs for being a useless plate of puke fries. Saying that, let's move to another story. Fyodor is standing in a line. His hands are sweating and his ear is ringing. He can feel the cold breeze that is numbing his ears and feet. He wants to run, but he knows there is nowhere to escape. The executioner is loading his gun. Fyodor has said his last prayer and is waiting for the bullet to pierce through his body. He can feel every vein and every breath. He has suddenly learned how to be happy, to appreciate things as fire in a cold evening, hot cup of soup made by her mother, or the warm embrace of a child and the faint fragrance of their innocence. Fyodor feels a sudden thud as the bullet pierced through his head. but he only learned how to really live 10 seconds before his life was taken from him. Man is sometimes extraordinarily, passionately in love with suffering. Life can end very easily, and us humans tend to forget that. You can be eating dinner with your family and choke to death because of a piece of almond. You could be taking a bath and drowning yourself to death. This does not mean that you should stop taking showers. Please, do. Just understand that your whole world can change in the blink of an eye. Kay is standing on the bridge. His face is covered with blood, and he has a limp as he struggles to walk. The world seems dark, and the noise of the city possesses his senses. He is treated like a second-hand citizen. Kay's loneliness is palpable as he navigates a world where he's viewed as an expendable tool rather than a sentient being. His only companion is a holographic AI named Joy, adding another layer to his isolation. The film explores the dehumanizing effects of technology and the artificial nature of relationships, highlighting the emotional distance between characters. Kay might be living in 2049, but it only means the kind of isolation and alienation we live with has intensified. You continue your dead-end job and become slaves to corporate power just to afford your Apple Watch, which tells you how truly bad your health is, and the fact that you cannot do much about it because you can either pay your bills or your health insurance. Remember when I told you about Kafka? Now let me tell you about Charles Bukowski. Charles was born in Germany in 1920 and then immigrated to America in 1923. Charles was beaten horribly and regularly by his father starting from age 6. He was mentally and physically abused, and apart from that, he was ridiculed by children for his German accent and clothing. When Charles grew up a bit, his face started to cover with acne and blemishes, which made him more and more conscious of his misfortune. Charles started to write in his early 20s, but was unable to be a writer until he was 50. Charles worked in a post office and wrote every single day. He did not always have immense hope or motivation. He did give up in between, but eventually, he always came back to writing because he did not choose it as his calling, but the writing itself chose Charles. That's why his tombstone reads, "Don't try." By that, Charles did not mean to tell his readers to lose hope. Rather, he means that whatever you do it because you want to. Love what you do unconditionally. He did not give up on writing because he wanted to be a famous, successful writer. Rather, he only wanted to write. Now, I'm not saying that Kafka's trauma was similar to Charles' struggle with abuse, but all I'm saying is, it's in your hands to choose the way you see the world. The doomer mindset will only alienate you more and will eventually isolate you from any future that brings happiness or peace. So, if you ever get a slight speck of hope, catch it, keep it, cherish it.